Welcome back to another edition of the Talking National League podcast, episode 18 tonight. And as the title does state, what a night it was on Tuesday evening with a lot of, I think, freak results, a lot of goals, but a lot of crucial wins for a lot of sides too. I'm pleased to be joined by Tom tonight to host tonight's show. Tom, firstly, how are you doing?
Yeah, mate, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. A lot better now after that 1-0 victory over Yorkshire rivals York City. I think we can establish now that Yorkshire is, in fact, blue, which is great to hear. But yeah, coming up then on tonight's show, we're going to review the previous game week. We're also going to preview the upcoming game week. But we're also going to be joined by Chris. Chris is currently backstage now. He's a Southend supporter. Works for the Southend Echoes. It'd be great to have his insight on all the troubles that are going on at Southend, and of course to talk a bit about things going on the field. Also, everyone who is watching, please feel free to get involved with the live chat. And I've noticed we've already got a comment. Ian Birchnell, as we always do state, it's not the real Ian Birchnell, but he's a Notts County fan. Evening all, big smile, Tom. Yes, certainly will be after your 1-0 victory over Wrexham. Now, quickly just getting a bit of admin out of the way. Please remember to drop the podcast a like. It would be most appreciated. Also follow me on Twitter. Also follow Tom on Twitter too. It's at Tom Williams 23. It's there on his description too. Also, I think some of you probably seen I've been requesting sponsorship and stuff. So if you could get that out there on Twitter, that'd be most appreciated. To help fund for the broadcasting site that we're using, all the equipment that's used as well, so it doesn't cost as much. I'm hoping to also start a Patreon, so for those who obviously can afford it, and that is if you can afford it, I know it is difficult times at the moment, I would much appreciate it if you could donate there. That will be up and running, I'm hoping, in the upcoming days too. But I think that's more or less everything out of the way, so let's bring Chris in firstly. Chris, firstly, how are you doing? Not too good, is it, down at Southend?
It's very busy. Obviously, I work for the paper and support the team as well, so it's a bit of a double whammy. So I think it's my fault because last Friday I met up with my mum and dad and was moaning that it was too quiet and that my hits were bad and that there wasn't too much to write about. And then by the time we got back from walking my dog, all hell had broken loose in terms of what was happening with Southend. So I should have known better, really. There's never really a sustained period of inactivity at Southend. There's always something going on. And like I've said many times, I do not know why Amazon or Netflix or any of these has never chosen Southend for one of their documentaries, because it is a club like no other. And that might be the plan that makes me my money maybe one day, that I'll try and look into starting the TV show. But it has been an eventful time, to say the least, once again.
Yeah, it certainly has at the moment. I think it was quite a big shock. Obviously, this season there was a lot of hope, wasn't there, going into this season? A few decent signings, like I think we previously mentioned. I brought you on before the season kicked off, and we were talking about the players that you brought in, how it's better recruitment than the previous campaign. But we also did mention it's not the same level as the likes of Notts County, Wrexham, and Chesterfield, and the players they were bringing in. But there were some nice acute signings in there, and it just doesn't seem to have gone to plan, doesn't it? Mid-table at the moment.
Yeah, it's been some difficult games so far for Southend, and I think the biggest issue has been trying to convert the chances that have come that way. It's obviously the most important part of the game, but defensively, Southend have been very sound and got one of the best defensive records in the division. But it's just been trying to find that right formula at the other end of the pitch and trying to convert the chances that have been created. Things have started to get a little bit better. Obviously, going into the game at the weekend, we're 4 undefeated, and the last few results and performances have been quite encouraging. So you'd like to think on paper, it's a dangerous thing to say at this level, but the next few fixtures, obviously Dagenham form goes out the window and whatnot. But after that, there's a run of fixtures that maybe look a little bit more favourable on paper, at least, compared to those that have gone before. So you would like to think that the Southend will start to move their way up the table. But as I touched on previously, Southend is just to literally predict the unpredictable, because it is just impossible to know what's going to happen next. And it adds to the drama, but sometimes we would like things to be just a little bit more dull and just to be about the football. And that's what we hope for. But unfortunately, that hasn't been the case for quite a long time now.
Yes, it certainly hasn't been, has it, at the moment? I know Martin being in charge of the club. There's always been that trouble, hasn't there, since when you were in League One, you were promised, I think, 21,000 seater stadium. It was something like that, wasn't it? Promised, and I think this is it with a lot of chairmen. That you're very lucky if those promises do go through, and they obviously certainly haven't, and you've took a backward step. And I think this is something that's been on for a very long time now, from when League One, when you first came down to the National League. You had more problems then. There were a lot of protests. This season, though, like I've previously mentioned, there was that sort of hope and positivity after how you ended last season. And then you get that news that apparently, I don't know, unpaid players haven't been paid. I'm not too sure exactly the details. I'm sure you have a lot more on that.
Yeah, so the first story to break was that the staff hadn't been paid for 3 weeks. That was a couple of weeks ago now. They've been paid since then, and thankfully they've now been paid for September as well. So that was, well, it shouldn't really be promising news that people have been paid on time, but unfortunately that's the way of the world in Southend's perspective. So that's a little bit more encouraging. Unfortunately, we then had news of the transfer embargo, again due to unpaid bill to HMRC, which is incredibly frustrating and could risk hindering Southend's progress a little bit. We've got a lone player in at the moment in Marcus Dackers, and I touched on before how Southend has struggled to convert chances coming their way. Well, he hasn't, and that's probably been a major reason in the improved results just recently. He's got 3 goals in 5 games, I think it is now, and he brings a lot to the side, and he even scored a penalty, which is something that Southend have struggled a lot with, as you'll know yourself, Luke. You can keep quiet about that one. And unfortunately, because of the embargo, unless Southend are out of the embargo by Saturday when he loan expires, he won't be able to stay. And that's a big blow. Southend will then have to try and conjure up another attacking formula and try and find a different way of scoring goals. So that's the problem. We had an issue with the sponsor. I'm sure everybody saw that. That went sort of viral after a Facebook post on Friday evening. That's now been resolved. The 2 parties have met and have come out and said that relationship is now promising, and they look forward to working to each other in the next 2.5 years, which is the length of the deal that was first agreed. So that issue seems to have been resolved, but you just never know what's going to happen next in South. And even that was Friday night. I'd been to an FA Youth Cup game, reported on that, took my dad, have a nice evening out, Southend had won, and then you're driving home in the car and my phone's going mad, and I'm not that popular, to be honest. It's only ever my mum or Mecca Bingo or KFC, or the cheap version of KFC that I once signed up to get a takeaway in Barrow during COVID. They're like the only people that ever text me, and there's no way that they were sending this many messages. So I thought something might have happened. So yeah, even at 10:30 on Friday evening, things are going on in the world of Southend, and it's never dull. But you kind of always become a little bit immune to it because you shouldn't, but that's just the way of the world at Southend. If you supported someone else and that happened, or you're looking in from the outside, you'd be, oh my God, what's going on there? But with Southend, you just accept it, and it's sad because it shouldn't be like that. And the level of support is phenomenal phenomenal for what they've had to put up with in the last couple of years, is even before that, has just been remarkable. And the potential for the club is huge, but unfortunately it just gets hindered by the way that it continues to be run. And that's the sad thing. And we just live in hope that it can eventually turn things around, because once it gets moving in the right direction, which Kevin Mayer has, to be fair, he's done a great job since he's come in, then the club can really go places. But we've been saying that for a long time now.
Yeah, they certainly has. Just to sort of cut it a little bit, we've had a few people come in the chat actually on Twitter. It didn't actually show on mine, but Michael Starkley, who actually lives, I believe, in America, Wrexham supporter, has said, enjoying the podcast, well done. Yeah, cheers for that, Michael. Cheers to everyone that has joined. Just to add for people on Twitter, if you are wanting to get in the live chat a little bit more, I would suggest moving over to YouTube, as I do notice we've got quite a lot of you listening actually on Twitter. So yeah, if you can, try and move over to YouTube. If not, there's no worries. But anyway, Tom, have you got anything to add?
No, it's just it's just sad to see a club like Southend, struggling, especially financially. Obviously, on the pitch, things, as you said, have started to go right now for Southend. You're looking like quite a dangerous side, quite a difficult side to predict week to week, actually, because 1 week, you seem to get going, playing well. And then we've had a couple of sort of bogey results, I think, this season. But it was a side that I predicted to do pretty well this season. But the transfer embargo is not good news at all. But you have got some quality players already, so at least it's you haven't got to get rid of players as of yet. And I'm not sure how deep rooted the financial issues are. If it's just one missed payment to HMRC, or whether it's if it runs deeper. So Chris might know more about that. But hopefully, not to have a similar thing with poor owners. Dropping down the leagues due to poor owners, and we're on the upward trajectory. I think Southend look like they're on a similar path, at least on the pitch, but obviously behind the scenes, maybe it's not quite as going quite as well.
Yeah. So what actually happened was previously Southend had missed a payment, and to resolve the issue, they agreed sort of a package whereby they paid a monthly figure to HMRC, and then eventually that would get eradicated. They missed one of those payments, and because of that, HMRC have now asked for the whole of the payment to be paid in one full figure. So that's why Southend are in embargo. The chairman released a statement as well before the game on Saturday to try and reassure supporters that he'd been able to sort out a bridging loan, is the thing that he described it, to try and cover the costs. And he did say in that it would be weeks rather than months is how he described it. So hopefully that is the case, and it's not something that will hinder Southend moving forward. But we've learned to our cost in recent weeks, months, and years that how do I word it? Actions speak louder than words, shall we say? So we need to see that happening. And the saddest thing is that we are likely to lose Marcus Dackers. The embargo potentially, as you touched on correctly, we have made a lot of signings, and the squad is strong. With a lot of players and a lot of competition and cover for most areas of the pitch. But with Southend's issues that they've got at the moment in terms of scoring goals, it is a big blow that we can't extend the loan spell of Marcus Dackers. And I believe it's right that once he goes back, you can't. We had a similar issue with Kasper Lapata last year. I think in the National League, once a player goes back from being on loan to his parent club, you can't then get him back again. So it's a blow, and I'd imagine that there'll be lots of other clubs from the National League looking at Marcus Dackers now, and I wouldn't be surprised if he was snapped up by someone else, given what he brings to the side and how well he has done at Southend.
Yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned Lapata as well, because that's what I found it so crazy when the news came that you'd missed the payment, because you've been signing, and he won't be on small wages. I couldn't imagine the Lapata. I'm saying that right. The centre half from Sheffield United, he would have been on. I know he's not played Sheffield United, but obviously he's a very good defender, and Dan Mini would be on decent money as well, because obviously he was a player that surely could probably play in the Football League. So there's not money being thrown around or spent there. It's like there is money being spent. So it's
you're right as well. And Lapata's a class act. He's come in and he hadn't really played too much. I think it was sort of, I don't know, he'd had a few months without sort of playing too much first team football. So I think he got a cramp in his first game at Chesterfield, and Southend conceded twice after he went off and lost that game. But he's too good for this league. Once he's got a few games under his belt and a little bit of experience, I'm sure there'll be clubs from a higher level that will be very eager to snap him up. And you are right. I think it was £30,000 that was the transfer fee that Southend are going to have to pay for him. I think it's in instalments or what. I'm not 100% sure, but that was the figure. So again, you're correct that there is money spent, but the problem is just having it consistently and trying to have that sustainability that you need to push on to get that success that everyone craves here. But unfortunately, it's sort of very short-termism at the moment, and the issues are long-term, and it's quite tough to take.
Yeah, it certainly is, and I think it's just so sad to see a side like Southend, and we know this. It's not just Southend this has happened. So it's happened to Halifax, it's happened to Notts, it's happened to Wrexham. A lot of sides have had bad owners that dropped down a couple of leagues, but with Southend, it's quite. I think awkward's the only term you can use, where you feel like, you've got a positivity, the players you've brought in, then it's back to reality. And I've never really seen it where it's been this long, such a poor owner that you have at this moment in time. And yeah, I'm going to ask you the question. Do you think the only way for Southend to move forward, and obviously we know what Southend's aims are, and that's to get back to the Football League, I think the only way that's possible is by getting a new owner?
Is he watching? I think so. In this time last year was the worst that it's ever been. I've been watching Southend. I'm going to sound really old now, so I'll say since I was 7. I won't give away my actual age, although you can work it out if you follow me on Twitter. So it's a very long time. That was the worst it had ever been. I remember coming home and thinking, I can't deal with this anymore. It was so depressing. The fans were protesting, and you could understand why. It hit an all-time low. The club was in crisis. Since then, it has improved. There is a structure in place. We've got a chief executive. We've got a manager with a good support staff around him, and things have improved. But we do keep coming back to the same problem, which is the finances. And I would say that if the chairman can no longer afford to fund the club in the way that he needs to be successful, then he should look at perhaps alternative people that could come in and add extra income and resources to the club. He ultimately wants to stay. He continues to stress that. And he's also got the planning in place for the stadium, which will benefit him. So that is a big key factor in his future. But the ball's in his court, really. Only he can show what he can do from him or here on in, if I could say it properly. But the last few years have been poor. There's no hiding from that. And Southend are where they are because of the financial mismanagement of the club. And it needs to change. Whether or not he can do that, only time will tell. Whether or not his priority is the stadium or the football side of things, only time will tell. But the fans are getting frustrated again, and you can understand why, because of the potential of the club is so big. And it's just so disappointing because the potential is there. And there are good things being done, but they get overshadowed by the bad things. So Kevin May has been fantastic. If you look at the job that he's done, it's a good job irrespective of the things that are going on behind the scenes. But when you know what is happening elsewhere, it makes you realise just the miracles that he has been able to achieve to sort of get Southend moving in the right direction. We've got a really good chief executive in Tom Lawrence, and he's got a big part to play in things improving. So with him still there, I'll be quite positive. But in terms of the long-term future, something does need to change one way or another, that we keep on coming back to the same situation.
Yes, certainly has done. Now, Tom, if you don't have anything to add finally, obviously Dagenham on Saturday. It's a bit of a derby, I believe. I think would you say it's more of a derby for Dagenham than yourselves?
It's a strange one, really, because it's not very far at all. So much so that I actually walked there once for charity. So that shows you that I'm not walking there this time, don't worry. But I did actually walk there once. So that shows you that it's not very far at all. We haven't played Dagenham too many times. So I think it's probably less than 20 times that we've ever played Dagenham. But I think nowadays, because we're in the same league and it's the nearest club, it has become something of a little bit of a rivalry. They beat us 3 times last season, and that seems to pop up quite a lot of times on my Twitter replies. If I sort of dare to ever look into the actual replies beyond those that I follow, there's often quite a lot of Dagenham fans, and good luck to them. They beat Southend 3 times last season and deserve to beat Southend 3 times last season. So that adds a little bit of extra spice. It's on the telly as well. Southend will take over 1,000 fans definitely to that one. So it is probably a little bit of a rivalry. It's not long standing because we haven't played them too often, and you don't tend to bump into too many Dagenham fans around Southend or anything like that. I think most Southend fans would still consider Colchester to be the main rivals. Obviously, they're another Essex club, so I think that'll be the main one that the Southend fans will still look to. But on Saturday, it will be one that Southend will definitely be looking to get their own back after what happened last year. I think it was Kevin Mayer's first game in charge that they lost 3-0. And then they beat us 3-0 again on my birthday as well. So that wasn't very good. So, it's a much different Southend side this time around, and they'll be looking to show that they've improved a lot. But it'll be a good atmosphere for sure.
Let's have a score prediction then.
Oh, I'm terrible. What, have you seen that? Like Dagenham is something I was looking it up. So they've in their last 7 games, there's been like 40 goals. So it's just ridiculous. And in Southend's last 7, there's been 14. So I'm not too sure. But even 0-0 after the recent record that Dagenham have had, it'll go to one extreme to the other. But I wouldn't be surprised if it was 2-2. That's what I'll go for 2-2. and hope maybe Southend sneak it, but I'm not the best at predictions, so maybe avoid what I say. But yeah, that's what I'll go for. I'll say 2-2 draw.
Yes, certainly. Chris, thank you for coming on tonight. I'm sure we'll speak again very, very soon. A bit of an update on Southend then. Hopefully it is in probably better circumstances, I would say. However, on the field, it is going well at the moment. Chris, I do really appreciate you coming on.
No worries, not at all. And keep up the good work, you two. It's always really good to follow your content that you do, and it's good to see the National League getting covered so well by the both of you.
Cheers.
Cheers, mate. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Take care. See you later.
So it was great to speak to Chris a bit on Southend. Now, what I'll quickly do, as I do know the chat has been quite busy getting your thoughts in. Firstly, Chris has come in and said, I'm a Chesterfield fan and I think we'll be back to winning ways soon. Dobber is key, though, to making most our chances, and he's been injured for a while. Yeah, he certainly has. I know, Tom, you're a fan of him, I believe, as well. And yeah, Chesterfield, we will move on to them and talk about yesterday's result. Lost the last 2 games. Heading into Saturday, it is a must-win, I think, for them, isn't it?
Yeah, to keep pace on the with Wrexham and Notts, definitely. They look like, to me, the team to beat, and all of a sudden they've lost 2 on the bounce. It shows how quickly things can change in this league. Dobber is fantastic. He's such a good player, and the fact he's been injured is not helping them at all. But I think they've got great squad depth this season, Chesterfield, and I think the team they've got, they've been putting out, is still good enough to beat Dagenham and Maidenhead, with all due respect to those 2 teams. So I think, as much as they are missing Dobra, he does make a lot of chances. They've got Oldacre and Banks, not as creative, but they're still very good midfielders who can create chances. And Jeff King creates a lot of chances from right back as well. So, I think you're right, though. It's a game they do need to win, because if they don't want to get into one of those positions where they keep losing or on a slippy slope,
Yes, certainly is. The next one is Aldershot fan. People are wanting Mark Moseley sacked, but I wouldn't have a clue who we could bring in. That would be good. That would be good for us. Any ideas? Yeah, Mark Moseley. To be honest, I'm quite a fan of him. I think Aldershot, they were another club potentially having a few issues off the field as well, from what I've heard from Aldershot fans. There's a bit of a disconnection between the fans and the ownership at Aldershot at the moment. But they haven't been doing well for a number of seasons now. What's your thoughts on that? And if so, if you wouldn't have Mark Moseley as the manager, who would you be looking to bring in?
Well, firstly on him, I think he's a decent coach. When they came to Meadow Lane, I went and watched the game, and I thought his tactics were really good. The tactics basically that if I was an opposition manager, would have done, put Effiong on Brindley. He got it right, but Effiong sort of ran out of energy after 30 minutes. That kind of blew the game plan out of the water for them. But for the first 30 minutes, Aldershot were probably the better side that night, and he looked like he got it spot on. And it's not really his fault that his players perhaps aren't as fit. Maybe it is his fault. I suppose he probably should get them fitter. But if they were to get rid of him, I know they're quite divided on him. If they were to get rid of him, Kevin Wilkin, I think it's Kevin Wilkin at Brackley, was sacked. I know a manager being sacked from the division below isn't the greatest advertisement, but I think he's a really good manager. He got Brackley into the playoffs last season. They had I think he conceded 23 goals, I think, last season, which is ridiculous in a 46-game campaign. And why they got rid of him, I don't know. And I think he deserves a chance in the division above. And if Aldershot are to get rid of the manager, I think they could do a lot worse than him. And I think another thing that's trendy nowadays is looking at managers that are sort of Premier League 2 sort of youth coaches. So maybe they could look at someone there. I haven't got any names off the top of my head, to be honest, but I know Aldershot to me here at uni. So maybe the Reading under-18s coach or something. But Kevin Wilkin from Brackley, I think it would be good.
Yeah, that's something that Notts did with Luke Williams, wasn't it, as well? And that seems to have gone well so far. Michael's put in fair play to Notts County Saturday night. Set pieces were quality for their goal. We had our chances and couldn't convert. Rematch at the Racecourse will be amazing. Yeah, it certainly will be. And I think that's a fair assumption of the game. Would you agree? Yeah,
mate. I thought it was an even game. The set piece was fantastic from Notts. Absolutely brilliant. He's well worked. Tom Wheel's as the goalkeeper coach, has been put on set pieces this year, and he's really improved our set piece taking and defending. And we've looked way better. And for Wrexham, it was a very even game. Even look at the stats, it was a very even game. But we just were that little bit more clinical. Obviously, Langstaff, he's going to score, and if you give him a chance, and they, even though the defenders set pieces, they allowed him to step off, and he fired it in. Go to the race course. To be fair to Wrexham, the 2 games they have lost have been away to Notts and Chesterfield, and they've both been away. So we've not seen a massive team go to the racecourse ground and get on. So we'll have to see what happens there. But it was a close game, and I'm just over the moon that we got the 3 points. To be honest, because it was tense towards the end.
It certainly wasn't. It is a massive win, and this is something that I will talk about Wrexham. The thing that sort of concerns me from them is their away form. Bringing it even back to last season, they were never particularly a force away from home. And I know everyone says you win your home games, you get a point away, but if you're wanting to win the title, especially in this league, you've got to be picking up points at least at Notts and Chesterfield and beating the so-called weaker sides, which is something that Wrexham have struggled to do. Notts away, I guess it's a difficult place to go, but if you're really wanting to win the league, and yes, it's still early, you should really be picking up points there, especially as well at Chesterfield too. But yeah, I think it is just how it is at the moment. But I think, Wrexham for me, there are a few things that I feel still managerial, in fact, as well. I think that's quite a big statement. Why I still don't think they will win the National League, unfortunately. Ian's come back in. Michael, it could have gone either way. Lucky we hung on and got the 3 points. It's going to be a tight season. Think us and Chesterfield will be slugging it out. Yeah, I would totally agree with that. Tom's come in and said, I think if my club Solihull can beat Yeovil, Maynard and Maidstone by comfortable margins, it might be enough to put us back in the title fight for the big home game against Chesterfield. Yeah, it certainly would be. Like I've stated many times, they were my favourites to win the title at the start of the season. I'm going to stick with that still, although it does look quite silly at the moment. But yeah, I think you've got to think about that. If Solihull can get a bit of momentum, which they do have now, we've seen Chesterfield, Notts and Wrexham drop points before, they could well be back in that title race, perhaps. I believe, is that it for comments? Yeah, I believe it will be. Ian's coming. Luke still think Solihull are going to win the league. Just answered it then. Now, what I was thinking, we could review last Tuesday night's games. However, we have sort of covered it a little bit with people coming in the chat and stuff. So it'd probably be best to preview all the upcoming games too, and potentially go back and talk about each team and go back on their previous fixtures as well. So I think the first game up and coming this week would in fact be, I believe it is actually Dagenham versus Southend. Now, we've talked a little bit about that. It's a bit of a derby. What's your take on that then? Dagenham getting a very impressive win at Chesterfield. Bit of a freak result. They seem to be that sort of side that is so inconsistent, but can be anybody on their day.
Yeah, they are a team that can be in on the day. I think they've got such great attackers. Junior Marais and Paul McCallum are 2 of the best strikers in this league. They're unbelievable. And they've got such an attacking team because they play wingers at wing back. Miles Weston is getting better, I think, as it goes on. He's a great wing back. Sort of the wing has gone to wing back, but they just concede so many goals. I think they conceded the second most now in the league, behind Maidstone. And I think Southend, if they turn up, they could turn them over. I don't think there's much confidence. I know they've just beaten Chesterfield 3-2, but they've conceded so many goals recently. Dagenham, they've conceded 5 against Notts. That was a while ago. They conceded 4 against Wrexham, 4 against Barnet, and they won. They conceded 5 against Dorking. So, there's so many times. They've scored a lot of goals as well. But if you're letting in that many goals, I think Southend as well. Southend have got the lowest expected goals against in the whole league. So, Dagenham are going to have to really turn up and to turn them over, really. Because I think Southend, he's half-12 kick-off, so it might favour Dagenham because it's earlier. But I think Southend will win away from home there. And Dagenham, I think, is an odd one because McMahon, the manager, is under pressure from the fans, but he's not under any pressure at all from the board, which is it's a crazy situation when they're conceding so many goals.
Yeah, it certainly is. It's a bit like the Millington situation at Halifax, although we won on Tuesday night. I think the fans are a little more on side of his ideas now, but I think it's sort of similar there. Ryan Brooks coming as a York fan. We signed Nathan Thomas earlier. Don't know what your thoughts are on that, as I think he was at Notts a few years back. Do you know anything on him?
I'll be honest, mate. I don't know a great deal about him, to be fair. I'm having a quick look now. I don't know a great deal about him. He was on loan a few years ago, but I don't know a great deal about him, to be honest.
Yeah, I know. It's quite a big signing for them, and quite a bit of a shock, I think, for them to sign a player at this stage in the season. But the next game is in fact Altrincham versus Dorking Wanderers. Altrincham still surrounding the bottom half of the table. However, they've gone up to 18th. Win against Gateshead. They've had 2 wins in the past 5 games, in the past 3, in fact. So things do seem to be turning and clicking there at Altrincham now, it does seem, and they can start climbing the table. Went into full time, obviously. Dorking at home, though. Dorking, a tough side. They're another side that can probably beat anybody on their day. However, on the other hand, they can also lose to anyone. What's your take on that?
Yeah, Dorking are a side, as you said, mate. They're a bit like Dagenham. They can beat anyone on the day. But Altrincham as well, they're a team that I've been backing all season until recent weeks. But at the start of the season, I had them quite high up, and then they kept drawing, and I thought I'll keep backing. And there was a point where I just thought, enough's enough. I've kind of got to admit that I'm probably wrong. And then they've won 2 and 3 recently. Fortunately, not against Notts when they played Notts. But they won 2 and 3, and they're looking pretty good when they play good football. This is really interesting because these are 2 teams that keep a lot of possession. So it depends which team's going to get hold of the ball. I think we'll probably walk away with the win. I think whoever can assert their game style on it. Quite attacking teams. I think Altrincham have got some really good defenders, and the fact that they can see as many goals, I think they may start conceding less soon. But I think Dorking are better at home because of the pitch. But even though the manager doesn't like the pitch, but they are probably more used to playing on it. I think I'll go for an Altrincham win. I don't know about maybe much though. It could go either way, but I'll go for an Altrincham win.
Yeah, I won't ask you for the exact score because I know you do like to do your weekly sort of score predictions. Everyone can go check that out as well once you do bring them out. Next game is in fact Bromley versus Gateshead. Gateshead just suffered a 3-1 defeat to Altrincham. In fact, Bromley, a very impressive win against Bournemouth. Another side, Bournemouth have always go under the radar, don't they? They were probably best of the rest up until Tuesday, and Bromley now sitting 4th. I think best of the rest is the term you could probably use with Notts, Chesterfield, and Wrexham. But yeah, Bromley, they seem to be a bit of a dark horse. I haven't really noticed them. I'm going to be honest, I haven't paid too much attention, but I think you have to now, after that 2-0 win against Bournemouth, away from home, in fact. But Gateshead at home, what's your take on that?
I'm glad that Bromley are doing well. I think I had them 5th in my pre-season prediction. I think I had them 5th, if I remember rightly. I definitely had them there at some point. If I went past it, I think they were 5th. And I remember after the first few game weeks, I thought, when they lost the opening game, then drew, and I thought, I've got this completely wrong. But ever since, they've been extremely good. They've kept the most clean sheets of any team in the division. So, I mean, they're good they're very tight at the back. And I think they're a really good side. And they've got Adam Marriott scoring goals now. He got the two against Bournemouth. I mean, Bournemouth away. Tough place to go. Notts didn't beat them. Got a draw there. And, I mean, Bromley are a good, really, really good team. I think they're a really, really good team. I think they're going to do really well this season. And Gateshead at home. Gateshead are a team, again, attacking side. So they're not going to come to sit back against Bromley. I think Bromley can pick them off because they've got the better quality. James Vennings in midfield is really good. And I think they'll just pick them off, to be honest. I think Bromley will win at home quite comfortably because I think Gateshead are a side that like to attack, so therefore can get beaten quite easily if they don't get it right. If that makes sense.
I totally agree. I think, especially them being at home, Bromley, I can't see them dropping points at this game, unfortunately. You look at Bromley, though, they've always been well known for defensively, but they've always felt with them, if Michael Cheek got injured, they'd be out, they'd be nowhere. They wouldn't have that sort of same team, and they wouldn't be up there. Where this season they've got 2 prolific strikers in Marriott and Cheek, and it seems to be Marriott getting most of the headlines. And I think we've seen that with Notts as well, Scott, Langstaff. If you've got more than one prolific striker, you're going to be in a good position at the end of the season, and they certainly are looking very strong at this moment in time. But hopefully for their sake, they don't tail off like they usually do in the winter months that are up and coming. The next game is Eastleigh versus Chesterfield. Crucial match for Chesterfield. They need to get back to winning ways. In fact, Eastleigh, a side that I think another side that are quite in the middle of the table this season, mid-table it seems to be. They are unbeaten in 3, picking up a draw against Aldershot away, a draw against Gateshead, prior to that defeating an out-of-form Halifax at the time by 1-0. What do you think heading into this game?
I think it's a good game for Chesterfield to bounce back. Obviously, they want to be at home, but they've just lost to at home on the bounce. But Eastleigh it's not the toughest place to go, to be honest. I'm not saying it's not an easy game, but it's not. I mean, they've won 4, drawn 4, lost 4, so they're quite like a average team, mid-table team. So I think if Chesterfield was to go somewhere, that's quite a nice place to go to try and get your win back. And I think they will do that. I think Shimanga might start because there was criticism that he didn't, and he came on. And I think they'll win. I think Chesterfield will get a win away. I'm not going for a single draw yet. I think Chesterfield will win away at Eastleigh.
Yeah, certainly. I think it's always that sort of place where I think Eastleigh it is. I know you've mentioned it's a good game to bounce back at, but it's always, I think, especially as a Halifax fan, and obviously it's a different circumstances, I always see it as quite a difficult place to go. But then again, I think Chesterfield, they need to be getting 3 points, and I think I would fancy them. Eastleigh do sort of seem to be taking the status of what Bournemouth had in the previous season of the sort of the boring drawing side. It seems to be that sort of statistic at the moment with 4 draws at the minute, being quite low scoring as well, it seems, in the majority of their games. The next game is, in fact, Maidenhead versus Oldham. We've just had a Maidenhead fan come in the chat and said, up the Maidenhead. Welcome to the chat. But from Oldham's perspective, it's a difficult place to go. A 2-2 draw against Scunthorpe on Tuesday night at home. I think when you look at it in the grand scheme of things, I think you've got to be beating Scunthorpe at home, in my opinion. But Maidenhead, it's always a difficult place to go, isn't it? It's a bit of a banana skin sort of game. The pitch, I think a lot of people have complaints about, especially your established footballing sides like Oldham. What's your take heading into this game?
Yeah, Maidenhead are going to be up for it. They do like to play teams that have potentially big names, and Oldham are a big name, even though they're not having a good season. They're not having a terrible season, not having a good season though, and they're a big name. And Maidenhead have won 2 on the bounce, so controversially, I'm going to go for a Maidenhead win. I think Unsworth's he's going to take time to get his ideas at Oldham. I think he has got time because there's teams that are worse than them in the league. But they haven't really got anyone scoring the goals that often for them. And I think Maidenhead seem to find ways to win. They won really late on against Torquay. Obviously, they beat Chesterfield. So I think at home as well, they do like to turn up and beat these bigger sides. So I think, I'm going to go for Maidenhead win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I believe it is a Maidenhead fan. It may well be an Oldham. I think honestly, we're probably going to lose, knowing us. We're so inconsistent. I'm trying to tell by its logo. I do believe it's a Maidenhead fan. If you can confirm that, I'd be much appreciated. It's blue. That's why I'm thinking it might be Oldham. But the next game is, in fact, Maidstone versus the Shaman. What's your take then on this? We're another side, like he's mentioned, so inconsistent this season. I thought we'd got our season kick-started when we defeated Scunthorpe and then went unbeaten in 3 games, picking up 7 from a possible of 9. And then we got destroyed by Aldershot, which was not a freak result. I think you have to give Aldershot credit for that game. But it was such a surprise. And ever since then, we've sort of gone down. I think the saying is 1 step forward, 2 steps back, it does feel like. And then obviously picking up a vital win against an informed York City side. You're sort of thinking now that has to be the time where we kickstart a season. But then again, I don't know how the season started. I can't really say, to be honest. Maidstone, it's a difficult place to go. But I think if we're wanting to do something this season and potentially still, and I think it's a massive but, wanting to get into those playoffs, this is a game that you have to win. And I think it is a big step. I think everyone else, even Southend, will probably laugh at that. Halifax is probably out of the equation now, I would say. But if we do want to sort of start climbing up the table, this is a game where we have to win and we need to get some momentum and some consistency. What's your take on this?
No, definitely. I think Maidstone as well, they've conceded the most goals in the league. So, it's a team that's sort of there for the taking at the minute. I mean, they've got a good manager, but whatever reason, it's just not working for them. And they scored 3 in the week. You think that'd be enough to get to beat Barnet? They lost.
Yeah.
And yeah, they've lost 4 on the bounce, and they just haven't got going. So I'm going to go for a draw, though. Controversially, I think if I had to pick a winner, I would pick Halifax. If I had to pick a winner, I would go Halifax. But I think Maidstone have got to get a point from somewhere. And as you said, you are quite inconsistent. And it's one of those games where I wouldn't be surprised if either side put a few past the other one, because you're both susceptible to sort of conceding a few. But it's a good time to play Maidstone because they are conceding a lot of goals and they're on a downward trajectory. So I'm going to go for a draw. But if I had to pick a side, it would be Halifax.
Yeah, I think I have to agree with you on that. To be honest, Halifax, they seem to be strong defensively in some games, like against York, against Scunthorpe, Southend at home were very strong defensively. Gateshead at home were strong defensively. But there are other games, like for example Aldershot away, where a defence just gets turned over, and it's quite weird to sort of put your finger on that. I think having someone like Deborah at the back should be strong, but then again, he was in that game where we lost 5-1 to Aldershot, so it's very hard what to predict away at Maidstone. But to be honest, as a neutral, obviously I'm a Halifax fan, but if I was a neutral, I probably would be going for a draw, to be honest, from my perspective. But the next game is Scunthorpe versus Aldershot. 2 sides out of form at the moment. Well, Scunthorpe, I don't know, they've picked up a bit of momentum now. They're in fact actually unbeaten in 5. I didn't actually look at that. A lot of draws in there. There are 4 draws and 1 win. What's your take on this?
Yeah, I think it'll be another draw, to be honest. They've done. I mean, since Keith Hill's gone, they've done a lot better. But they're still second to bottom, and they're not. 4 draws is brilliant. Like when I saw it, I was thinking, 5 unbeaten, it's great. But 4 draws is only 4 points. So if you won 2 in that time and lost 2, you'd be better off. So it's all well and good not losing games, but you do need to win games at this level. And they just don't seem to be able to do that at the moment. And Aldershot as well, probably desperate for a result because. Again, they're another side. It feels 1 step forward, 2 steps back. They got that big win over you, and I thought, here we go. They're finally picking it up because they perform quite well sometimes. But then again, they seem to. And they were 1-0 up against Wellstone as well. And they lost 2-1 there. So yeah, they're. It's a tough game to call because I think both sides need a win. But I'm going to go for a draw because again, I can't really separate them. I think Scunthorpe have got something about them now. They're not rolling over for teams before, and Keith Hill, I think they just had given up before they even kicked the ball. So at least there's a bit of fight about them now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems like there's a bit of an identity about them now. Scunthorpe United, unbeaten in 5. That's a good statistic. But like you've mentioned, you need to be turning those draws into win if they want to start, climbing up the table and get away from that relegation zone. Because at the moment they are still in the relegation zone, and they need to start picking up some vital wins very, very soon. And I think it does start with Aldershot at home. I think if I was a Scunthorpe fan, it would be a must-win game. The next game is, I think this is a bit of a derby. Wealdstone versus Boreham Wood. Wealdstone start the season so strong, and they were, I think they were the sort of side after those number of games. You're thinking, are they going to be the side that might be a shock and get in the playoffs? But they seem to have, I wouldn't say tailed off, but recently, they haven't been as dominant and consistent as what they were at the start of the season. Losing to Solihull away, losing to Southend. I think they are starting to fall a little down that table. Would you agree?
Yeah, I'm hoping they can do it. They're a part-time team. I'm hoping they can. I mean, what a story it would be if they could get playoffs. I really like them. They play some really nice football. Really good to watch. I agree they've not been as good, but I mean it's probably to be expected. They lost to Solihull and Southend. I mean, they're 2 pretty good teams, especially Solihull. Yeah. So, and they came from behind against Aldershot. Reece Brown's looking a good striker as well. But Boreham Wood is another good side. A side I quite like. They're playing better football than people are giving them credit for this season. They've been far better this season than going forward. They're brought in some strikers. They're getting goals. Zach Brunt is a fantastic footballer. Big fan of him, and he's playing in a role that actually suits him at Boreham Wood. He's been very creative. But again, I said before, instead of a draw, I've not picked a draw yet. I'm actually going to go for another draw. I think these are 2 really good teams. and I think they're going to both be in the playoff hunt. I think Bournemouth will definitely get playoffs. I think Wellstone, it might be a step too far for them, just because of the part-time model.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
But I'm going to go for a draw because I do
Yeah.
really rate both sides.
Yeah, I think like you mentioned part-time, and that's something I said at the start of the season. I know it's sort of backfired what I said. I put them in the relegation zone, and I said, literally, because you're part-time, I just can't see them staying in this league, because I do feel that the part-time sides, it will start to catch up to them at some point, and they will start dropping down the league because the league's becoming so competitive now. But Wheelstone was sort of proved me wrong that you can be part-time, you can do part-time, you can do very, very well. But recently they've been a little inconsistent. I wouldn't say they've tailed off as such, but still, yeah, I think being at home to Bournemouth for them, you have to be getting a point or at least a winning fact here. But Bournemouth losing to Bromley, they'll be wanting to bounce back. But yeah, I'd probably agree with you on a draw. Your team now, then, Woking versus Notts County. Must win for you, would you say?
In a way, maybe. Must win is strong. I think we should win. They're a really good team actually. Woking this season, they're way. I mean, I went to this game last year, so I'm going again on Saturday.
Yeah.
I went last year. It's not far from my uni at all, so it's easy to get to. And last year I turned up and I was amazed by how easy it was to beat them. They sort of rolled over. They just sort of turned up, and 5 minutes in, you knew we were going to beat these because they're not up for it at all. Whereas this season, they look way better. They're in a playoff place at the moment. I think they will get playoffs working. I really do rate their side. If you want to win the league, you've got to. You can't lose this game. That's for certain. And we're top for the first time. Let's maintain that advantage now and get the win. We played really well against Wrexham. Woking are a good team. They can hurt us. They're very strong defensively now as well compared to last season. I think it'll be a tough game. I think it might be 0-0 for a long time, but I think we'll break them down eventually. I'm going to say we're going to win. Hopefully we do. Last away game I went to, we lost. So Dawkins. So hopefully this one we do actually turn up and get the win.
Yeah, it's always a difficult place to go working. I always see it as I don't want to speak on them too much because it brings on the conversation of our 4-0 defeat to them. That's unforgivable. Yeah. I know we defeated York, but I don't think it makes up for that because that was horrendous and shocking to the defending. But Ali has come in and said, up the working. Yeah, good luck to you for the rest of the season. But yeah, thanks for that 4-0 defeat. 4-0 victory, in fact, against us on Saturday. I think from Notts' perspective, I think it is a game. If you're wanting to go for the title, you have to win. But then again, I don't think a draw would be the end of the world when you look at Woking. And like you've mentioned, they're certainly a contender for the playoffs, if not getting into those playoffs and breaking in. They looked a decent side against Halifax, but then again, I think any side would have looked decent on that day the way we played. But yeah, I think you have to give Woking credit for that. I do rate Darryl Sarl as well very highly. The next game is Wrexham versus Barnet. I don't know if this is a shock. Wrexham being at home, I'd expect them to win comfortably. I'd probably go battering even 3-0, 4-0.
Yeah,
Barnet, yeah, they've I don't know, they were another side, started so strong, and they certainly have tailed off 11th in the league now. They've had one win in 5. Yeah, a 5-0 loss at home to York. It just doesn't seem to be going well for them. However, they did defeat Maidstone at home, but it seems to be that regular occurrence of last season, bringing back last season's problems to this season with the fact that they're leaking goals. They've leaked a total of, I believe, in fact, 13 goals in the last 3 games. Now, that's not a very good statistic, and they need to sort that out very, very quickly. And I think away to Wrexham, that's probably the worst side that you want to be playing at the moment if you're wanting to not ship goals in constantly. But yeah, what's your take on this?
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head there, mate. I think we've 3, 4, 5, maybe 0-1. Barnet, they've got some great players, and I actually really rate 2 of their defenders, Diarra, and Ben Winter. Really like both those defenders, but they're just, as a defensive unit, it's absolutely awful. And I mean, Dean Brennan came out. I mean, they got the win against Maidstone. Maidstone are a bit in free fall, so maybe papering over the cracks a little bit. But he came out last Saturday. You've seen that interview. If you've not seen it, I would say go and watch it because it's really well. I don't know if you like uncomfortable viewing because the interviewer gets in a bit of an argument basically with him. He tells the interviewer off for asking him a question. It's quite interesting viewing anyway. But yeah, I digress there. Wrexham will win. They'll want to be bouncing back after losing to Notts, and they've got the quality to do it. I think 3, 4, 5. To be honest, it could be any of those. I think it'll be easy day's work for them.
Yeah, I'm gonna. Like I said, I'll agree with you. And I don't know what it is. I know Barnet on the first game of the season, they defeated them. I went down. I saw the whole game, and they looked a well settled up side, organised, but they always seem to be poor defensively. And I don't know what it is. They have some fantastic players going forward. Losing Mason Clark, which happened quite a while ago now, didn't seem to help the situation. They have seemed to tailed off. A Barnet fan has actually, in fact, come in and said proper struggling at the moment. Can't defend, can't attack very well, but we'll never do well with a poor back line. Not looking forward to the trip to North Wales Saturday. Now, I don't think many teams really look forward to going to Wrexham because it's just such a difficult place to go. Not many sides even pick up points there. And yeah, I'm going to be honest, mate, I'd probably be backing Wrexham heavily, and I think you could be turned over in this game, unfortunately, for your sake. The next game is Yeovil versus Solihull Moors. Yeovil, they're another side, 21st in the league at the moment. They've only picked up the one victory. 7 draws, though, at home to Solihull Moors. Solihull, another side, now I've backed them. I've got a lot of confidence in them this season. They can do very well. What's your take on this?
Yeah, Yeovil have only won one game. The only team in the division to only have won one game. And I think that says it all, really. I've said from the start of the season, I think they're going to go down. And there's nothing against Yeovil fans. I actually really like them as a club. I think they are going to go down. I think after they lost Tom Knowles, they're slightly doomed. And, they've got 7 draws. They seem quite tough to beat. They've only lost 4. They've only lost 4. But they've not been... get 7 draws. You've only won one game. They're in the relegation zone. They need to win more games. And it's not going to be against Solihull, I don't think. I think Solihull will turn up and I think they will win quite comfortably again. Solihull are a really good side. They won fairly late on. I think Solihull have scored so many goals late on as well. They're such a threat all the game long. And they've got so many good attacking players. I can't see Yeovil getting much out of the game. I know that at home, but I can't look past Solihull.
I'd actually go for a draw for this game. They seem to draw a lot of games, and especially 1-1 as well. He seems to be really regular as well. Home to Solihull Moors. Like I've said, Solihull have a lot of confidence for them, but I could see this being a draw. A long way to go for Solihull players. Yeovil being at home, they are actually on the form table 23rd in the league at home. However, they seem to be quite a difficult side to beat. I know that's quite hard to say when they are 23rd, but 3 draws at home and the 1 victory. I could see this being another draw, in fact, for them. The next game and the final game, in fact, is, I believe, York City versus Torquay United. York will be wanting to bounce back. I think it was a bit of a shock to them how they performed at Halifax because, to be honest, you've got to give Halifax credit, you've got to give us credit, but at the end of the day, I don't believe they turned up on the day. Torquay, bottom of the league, things at there seem to be going bad to worse. I think it's another awkward situation because I think Torquay fans have a lot of respect for Gary Johnson. He's done very well for them, but has he run his course? I will ask you that question, in fact, in a second. But York at home, what's your take on that?
Yeah, mate, well, that was going to be part of what I was going to say because I think York City, yeah, you're right. I think you did brilliantly to beat them. I had them to beat you, I'm pretty sure. In fact, I would have had them to beat you because I really rate York. I think they've done really well. John Askey's done a great job bringing them up and then completely changing the side and just continued it on and done really well. But all credit to Halifax for beating such a good, strong side. But I think back at home against Torquay at bottom of the league, they've not scored. I think they've scored... I don't think they've hit double digits yet. They look lost. They lost late on to Maidenhead, which is 96th minute. It's not great to be losing that late on. And Torquay, you're expecting better before the season. Bear in mind the season before, I think it was winning the playoff final. That's right. Season before the playoff final.
Hartlepool,
They just. it's just not going well for them at the minute, and I would have to go for a York home win, and I think probably 2 or 3-0.
Yeah, I'd probably agree. I don't know what it is at Torquay. It just doesn't seem to be clicking there at the moment. Things do seem to be going bad to worse. In fact, the crowd sort of say that, Torquay at home always seem to be well supported at home, getting over 2,000. I think last season, the lowest crowd, bearing in mind they didn't actually have a fairly good season for their standards last season, was over 2,000. Well, this season, I think the other night on Tuesday, it was 1,500 there, which is very poor for them, in fact, but that's what's happening with the results, and losing at home to Maidenhead is very, very bad, I would have to say. And York away, they're not the sort of side that you want to be playing. But yeah, I think you've got to have a bit of hope with Halifax defeating York. Torquay at the end of the day defeated us, but I didn't think too much for them. I think that more or less concludes all the games. Tom, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on once again. For anyone that is watching, go find him on Twitter. Tom, anything new coming out in the upcoming weeks, articles-wise?
We're all over on Not Stats. We're working on a quarter review that I think is either going to be out tonight or tomorrow.
Yeah.
A review of the first 12 games that we've quarter of the way through the season. So that's why I've been able to rattle off a few stats because I've been working on it today. So don't think I know all the stats all the time. I've been working on it today. They've stuck in my mind. And then I should have the predictions out tomorrow, which you mentioned earlier. Full prediction, explain it. So what we've just gone through now with the actual scores, and also, that's it for this week. To be honest, I'm going to the game on Saturday, and some more stuff next week coming out. But that's it for this week. To be fair.
Yeah, absolutely. Tom, it's been a pleasure to have yourself on. And it's great what you're doing with the articles and stuff at Not Stats. I know you rated highly there. Cheers to everyone that has tuned into tonight's edition. Thanks for getting involved in the live chat as well. It seems to be very busy tonight. A lot of you also on Twitter watching. That's great to see that the numbers are going up on Twitter as well as YouTube. Ali's coming and said, chin up, Luke. The shaman will come good. Yeah, hopefully we will now. Cheers for that, Ali, and good luck to working for the rest of the season. Patreon and stuff like that, we'll explain more on Twitter if you want to find me over there. Tom, once again, thanks for coming on. Thank you for tuning in, everyone.
Cheers, thanks for having me.